current plan. Yeah. Which is significant.
Well, she also said, and I know I'm basically under a similar plan, right?
Yeah, it varies depending upon.
Right. It varies as a function of, you know, what's covered and what's not specifically, and so it's hard to base a judgment on a single bill. I think you have to look at a big, you know, a broader picture of bills and what's going on. I guess the one thing that's come up that I'm not sure I'm clear on now is when an employee is on Medicare, right, then it's the federal government's plan that's controlling the benefits, right? The town's involvement is paying the 50% of that bill, or is that administered back through the town's insurance too?
No, we don't administer the Medicare plan here.
Not at all.
One of the questions.
Even supplemental insurance?
I don't know, that's an insurance question that I don't know, frankly.
I'm just looking for a little clarification too, and I made a little note here when you said the Medicare premium, the B, Part B, there's overpayments that are made by our retirees.
Yes.
You said to the tune of almost $100,000, and the overpayments come back directly to the town?
Some towns, in turn, give it back to their retirees. Other towns keep it. North Reading has been keeping it.
We apply that to offset our health insurance budget. So we appropriate those monies every year to offset our health insurance costs, which covers retirees, obviously, also.
Oh, okay, but the direct correlation between what's returned from the retirees, basically, what they've paid in for additional premiums to Medicare Part B, come back to the town, the overpayments, and then we apply it across the board for all health insurance coverages?
There's a considerable amount of effort that goes into getting those monies. It's not as though there's a check that simply comes back that we cash every year. I know that the Human Resources Department spends considerable time pursuing those amounts. I don't know, again, you're asking me questions that are outside of the scope of my knowledge. You really have to be a health insurance expert to understand that. I can tell you that the town does not pocket those monies. Those monies are returned back to the health insurance budget. They're voted as an offset against the health insurance budget every year. That's been the practice for the last 2 years.
And I'm not disagreeing that it doesn't help offset the cost of health insurance budgets, but what we have here is people who are paying out a 50-50 split as opposed to a 70-30 split, contributing 100% of the returned excess premiums that they've paid in addition to their 50-50 split that's coming back to the town. And they're only deriving a small benefit, a disproportionate benefit because of the split that they're paying to the town. I find that enlightening.
Exactly right.
I found that enlightening, and I would think we need to revisit that a little bit so that if there's any way in which we can, aside from the administrative costs from chasing down these funds, apply those returned Medicare Part B premiums directly towards the retirees' portion of the benefits, since they're the ones who paid in, I would feel that would be more fair in offsetting.
I don't disagree with Mr. O'Leary either. I think it's, if that's true, I think it's unfair to the retirees. If it's an overpayment that they have made, the town is applying it to health insurance premiums across the board, I think I have an issue with it.
Yeah, so if we could, have Allison take a look at it, and whoever else we have, our insurance advisors.
Certainly.
That would be very beneficial, and if there's any way in which we can cull out that portion of reimbursements which they've paid to help offset their premiums, I think we should do that. You keep the split 50-50, but at least it reduces what they're paying in, that portion of it. And again, I'd be more inclined to apply it to their 50%, since it was their money anyway, above and beyond the premiums that they've paid as a retiree. It would only be fair that we return those funds directly back to the retirees.
I think we have to take a hard look at that.
And again, I was unaware, and I appreciate your comment. I did make a little note here.
Yeah, I think before we
Again,
do anything, we need to get the
Right.
But
specific
I'd
facts,
like
but-
I'd like a response to it sooner rather than later, so that as we're allocating things and deciding what insurance premiums are going to be.
Well, I think you know,
assess,
this,
then we need to
this,
allocate it
this
appropriately.
does, even though Ann may not be lobbying for or against 18, I think this leads down a path that we said we would properly have vetted prior to June town meeting.
Right.
Any other discussion?
Gus says,
Gus.
Mr. Lamont.
I'm sorry.
Just one comment. It's my understanding that the town has proposed 2 articles before the current town meeting about changing, from my understanding of the 2 articles before the town meeting, is that they're trying to force the people that are on Medicare to automatically go on MedX. And what's that doing is taking the choice away from, I think there's only a very few individuals that do not have MedX and stay with the HMO Blue or whatever the insurance company they happen to be with. And what you're doing, if you're accepting either one of those articles, one section's grandfathers people in, and the other
Yeah.
one says, well, I'm sure you know what it is. What you're doing is you're taking away a choice of a very few retirees of what insurance policy they want to take to pay for. They're paying a lot more money for that portion if they stayed on HMO Blue policy. And I think if you take that away, that's just one other thing that it's going to hurt them. Give them the choice. You're not talking about a lot of people there. I don't know how many exactly, but out of 400 people, you might be talking 3 or 2% of those people. So if you accept either one of those articles, what you're doing is you're taking the option away from people that are willing to pay the more money for a better plan off whatever the plan that suits them, whether their medical needs. And so I think I know Ian didn't take a stand. I'm telling you, as far as the retirees, not the teachers, on the other side of the agenda, which I represent, we're opposed to that. Let us keep the choice of what policy we want to pay for, and don't force us into something that we feel very uncomfortable with, or some of us feel uncomfortable with. Personally, I think MedX is a good way to go, but the guy next to me might not think that. And I think it's unfair for you people to accept either one of those sections to force those people into a program that they really don't want. Thank you.
The only, the difference is, what is it, 40-some-odd thousand dollars in the current upcoming fiscal year we're talking about as far as,
Mandating everybody going into the program?
Greg? was it-
64.
Oh, 64, I'm sorry.
64, but that's before you redefine the pool.
Redefine the pool in relation to what we just talked about?
No,
No.
the balance of people,
No,
the
in
active
terms of
employees.
The active employees, before you do the
And those
analysis. I
retirees.
think
Right now, by the way, Gus, the retiree numbers that are eligible for Medicare
Yeah.
are small, but new employees coming downstream, they'll all be 100% eligible.
That might be so, but if what you're doing is you're shutting certain people out right now, and you're taking that choice away from. You know, I'm sure this whole insurance thing is this is just the beginning. There's gonna be a lot more changes that the state's gonna do. That's my understanding, the state's probably gonna mandate this into the state program. Now, if that comes in, I think this whole thing is gonna change. But what you're doing, if you accept either one of those sections, you're gonna make those people lose a benefit that they feel is very important to them.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other discussion regarding this? All right, then let's move on. We have, running a little behind, legal bills for March 2010. Mr. Belliconis?
I'd request the board approve legal bills totaling $14,594. You'll note that in going through the packet that's been submitted by legal counsel, that there's some costs attributable to the preparation, review of warrant articles and motions for town meeting totaling $2,205. Additionally, we have additional costs related to ongoing labor litigation totaling $3,115. At this point, I've reviewed the budget, tried to estimate what our expenses are going forward for April, May, and June. It appears as though within the appropriation will be okay in terms of getting through to the end of the fiscal year. So request your approval.
Okay, Mr. Yule.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve legal bills for March 2010 in the amount of $14,594.45 as follows. Copeland and Page, PC General, $10,938.95. Copeland and Page, PC Labor, $3,115. Copeland and Page, PC Water, $402.50. And West, $138, for a total of $14,594.45.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Yule, seconded by Mr. O'Leary. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Okay, FY 2011 budget informational hearing. See, we have a good group of interested citizens and town employees, members of the school committee, and members of the finance committee.
Excuse me, you're not doing number 6, though.
Did I skip something?
Yeah,
Second way,
Oh, I'm sorry.
should be quick.
Excuse me, 1 minute. Okay, we have a memorandum of agreement. This is for the DPW employee contract that covers FY 2010, the current year. So this is final settlement of a one-year contract with the DPW. Those that might ask the question of why it's taken so long, I think one of the, we've had a change in administration in a period of time, and I think the unions finally got together and we finally got an agreement. So, Mr. Belkonis?
We've been through it in executive session. The language in the contract is consistent with our other collective bargaining agreements, which is acceptance of the health insurance language for this year. One-year agreement, July 1, 2009 through June 30th of 2010. No step increases or cost of living increases awarded during that period of time.
Discussion?
Well, should I read the motion first?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move to ratify the memorandum of agreement between the Town of North Reading and North Reading Public Works Union for the period July 1, 2009 to June 30th, 2010.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Yule, seconded by Mr. O'Leary. Now do I hear any discussion?
Again, it took a little while, but I think they changed counsel along the way. But I think it's important to note that the Department of Public Works collective bargaining unit, of course, didn't take any substantive action in relation to any of the actions that this board and administration needed to take in order to balance the budget. They've been cooperative all the way along throughout the year, and this is just a culmination of a significant amount of discussion and cooperation between the administration and the collective bargaining unit, and it's greatly appreciated, and it's indicative of pretty much all of our labor negotiations for the current fiscal year.
Thank you,
I think it's
Mr.
right.
O'Leary. Mr. Yule?
Yeah, I have a couple questions, and I apologize, because I think some of the questions I had should have been discussed much earlier. But I'll use it as a learning experience, not only for me or for anybody who's listening and anybody on TV. In the first paragraph, it says, the terms of the parties expiring July 1, 2006 to June 30th, 2009. And from a layman's perspective, it sounded like it should have said the parties of July 2001, 2006 through and in expiring, can't even say it, and expiring on June 30th. From a layman's perspective, it looks like it doesn't expire on July 1st.
No,
It expires
this
June
is
30th.
referencing,
A period.
this is referencing the previous contract, and this is
Right.
a memorandum of agreement,
I understand that.
right,
yeah. Okay.
adding to the existing contract.
Okay. I was just curious about the wording, that's all. But also in Article C, Article 16, he has 16.1 dash. That implies something should have followed?
I don't,
First sentence, add new subsection to the end of Article 16.1 hyphen.
yeah,
Should that have not been in there, or
No, it's right.
does that imply anything, or? Silly
I can say to
question,
you,
Jim.
there's no ambiguity between the parties that signed and negotiated this agreement. You have a signature by the union attesting to the fact that they agree to the terms and conditions. Administration recommends it. We've discussed this issue in executive